Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Carrie Siggins, and I hope you're having a fantastic day today. I am excited to bring my guest to you, Alicia Long. I met Alicia through a fellow YPOer who told me I had to meet her. Alicia and her husband Dane are the co-founders of Nutr, which is a sustainable nut milk machine. So basically, instead of going to the grocery store and buying coconut almond milk, my favorite, you can do that at your house very easily. And Alicia tells her story of how she came up with this idea and how she and her husband, Dane, are growing this company. Her goal is to be $1 billion valuation in the next couple of years. And she is just amazing. She's a Chinese immigrant who has always known that she's been wanted to be an entrepreneur, but struggled to find her way until they came up with this nut milk machine, the Nutr. Alicia is brilliant. She's transparent and so full of energy and vision. I can't wait for you to meet her. So hang tight and I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I am back with Alicia Long, who is the founder of Nutr, which is going to be just amazing for you to learn about. I did a bunch of research on it before the show, and I cannot wait to get one because I am an almond milk fanatic. So will you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the company that you founded?
Yeah, of course. So, hi, I'm Alicia. It's an honor to be here on this podcast. So, very excited. I am ex Googler and then ex Amazonian. So, I was in the tech world for a number of years until pretty recently, I guess, just in the middle of the pandemic. And I moved back from the Bay Area to Columbus, Ohio. So, and I married my husband and started the journey on the e-com. So at first, the idea came to me. So Nutr is a plant-based milk solution. So the reason why I said it's a solution is not it's because it's not only just the hardware that makes the plant-based milk, but also we wanted to provide a convenience for all the consumers and bring back the nuts and seeds and celebrate this category because a lot of folks, are lactose intolerant, including me, myself, and also my husband. So we were drinking so much plant-based milk, and most of them they have a lot of added sugars, emulsifiers, gums, and those fillers that you don't want. But manufacturers, in order to keep the products to be shelf stable, and they have to put a lot of fillers in those, milk. So which to me doesn't make sense because as consumer, we're buying almost 98% just water and the 2% nuts. And I was like, growing up, because I'm a Chinese immigrant and I moved to the States in 2009. And growing up in China, I always drink homemade plant-based milk. My mom would just grind the nuts and soak it the night before and then grind it and use a cheesecloth, strain through, and it just very manual and lengthy process. But that's how my mom, the last generation, and they like to take the time and to make homemade plant-based milk. And I was like, well, I don't have that kind of time, but it's 2020 and why don't we have technology for it? So that's when I looked at an espresso and I was like, ding, ding, ding. Like there's I guess a vision that we want is to create the kind of a Nespresso similarly brand for plant-based milk. So my husband, Dane, he is the co-founder and CTO. So he has 15 years of experience in product development, in manufacturing. So he's very passionate about solving problems. So me and him work together, and then we turn our kitchen into a lab, and basically figure out how to filter the nut milk, and then how to blend heat, at the same time, and then be able to filter it through so that we get really creamy results. So yeah, so after a year of product development, and we launched the product in July of 2021. So and we've been growing about 34% month over month since then. So it's been a wild ride.
I love that story. There's just so much to unpack there. So let me understand this. Did you move to Ohio, get married, and start a company all in a really short period of time?
And I was pregnant and I was working full time. So I was
How do you do
on it.
that? That's amazing. I mean, that is a lot on your plate. How did you navigate so many major life decisions at the same time?
Yeah, so I think biggest motivation is my son, because I was pregnant at that time, and then I realized that there's a lot of preservatives in those store bought milk, and I was like, well, I can't really drink milk, and I wanted to get those nutrients, but I don't want those preservatives. So how can I make it happen, right? So that's when the idea came from, and then also another motivation is that a lot of these milk cartons they are ended up going to landfill. They're not recyclable. So I was like, well, this billions of milk cartons and it's gonna be ended up in, as pollution. And I don't want the next generation to have to suffer that. So that's the reason why. And I was inspired by David Attenborough. So he has a show on Netflix. So I was watching a lot of those shows and I was like, I really want to make an impact in this world, because my biggest fear is that when I wake up one day, I don't have too much time left, and then I haven't done anything meaningful or impactful to help benefit the world. So I just wanted to, create something that can make a huge impact, over time, and provide some, convenience for normal people like myself. So yeah, so that was kind of an inspiration is that sustainability piece, and also I want to be the example, leave legacy for the next generation.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And so, did you still work full time while you were starting the side hustle, or did you decide, like, okay, I'm going to go all in, being a mom, figuring out how to be a wife, and doing product development for this new product? What was that like?
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely did, and there was definitely very challenging times, and oftentimes I found myself still up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and just got done breastfeeding, and then having to, work on or study how to run an e-commerce company. Because as a first-time founder, I was a technical recruiter in my W-2 job before, and I was working for Google and Amazon, a number of tech startups, and I really helped the companies to build their teams from small to big. And I helped startups too. And then I kind of learned what it takes to build a venture. And I've always wanted to build a venture myself. My entire family, they are entrepreneurs. So and that definitely helped me to understand okay what it takes to build a strong team. So I understand it's not just a one person, you can't just build a whole company by yourself. So it takes a whole village, right? So what I kind of identify what I was good at, what I was not good at. So because I was a technical recruiter for my career, so I understand my strong suit is to recruit people. I may not be the smartest in the room, but I can recruit smart people. So I just kind of duplicated myself. I hired the first director of marketing and, hired a content marketing manager, hired CFO, hired COO, kind of just duplicated myself and then outsourced my weaknesses, if you will. And then so I have, our COO is from Nestle, 14 years of experience at the headquarters, so really knows in and out about operations that I don't have much knowledge of. So I kind of just assemble the team together. And then over time, and there's definitely a learning process and just a lot of sleepless nights. And but over time, and once we kind of outgrew the team, and then we have a little bit more resources and building a team, it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. I mean, you just can't. I love what you said. You cannot build a company without great people, and it's hard. It's hard to, especially as a startup. I'm sure to find people who like buy into the vision and are willing to, put their whole, heart, soul, blood, tears, and sweat into it with you. How did you motivate? How do you motivate people in this early stage, a startup that you guys are in?
I always say I don't motivate people. I hire motivated people.
Love
Um,
that.
because I think it's just the fact that myself, I am self-motivated, right? So I don't need other people to motivate me because motivation is temporary, inspiration is long term. So that's the reason why I wanted to inspire people who have the same vision. I can articulate what my vision looks like. And then if they, I always say that you need right people at the right place. If it's a wrong person and the right seat, that does not work. If it's a right person and the wrong seat, that does not work either. So that's my hiring principle is that, does this person, fit in culturally, right? Does this person have the drive and the hunger to build a startup? If not, then this is not the right person. If it's this person have a lot of experience, but in a different area, that means this person is not the right person for the for the right seat. So it takes a lot, to obviously interview and I like to hire slow and fire fast. And once
Mhm.
we, kind of identify the six core values that we have, and then we just, follow that in every single hire and the interview process that we have. To find that, and sometimes it's hard, if people have really, really great intention, but it's a wrong seat for them and you have to kind of let it go. So that just nature of the business is never perfect, but you can always thrive for perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And hiring for fit on values, that's so important. And a lot of startups, I don't think, take the time to really spell that out. And so it's harder to intentionally build your culture. Here at Stone Age, our value systems around what we call the own it mindset. We're an employee-owned company and we live and breathe it. And I talk to a lot of other business leaders and life hero and all the different things I do. And I'm always amazed at how little value people put in their values or kind of just like roll their eyes or, yeah, we have them, but, they really don't inform our decisions. Can you talk about what you went through to say, we want to be a value driven company and developing your six values?
Yeah, so I think it all comes from leadership. And first we have to get the buy-in from the leadership, and then when I say get the buy-in, is that getting them included, right? They are all part of it. So when they are the ones who create the core values, they get to live and breathe it, right? So in their leadership, in their own departmental meetings, team meetings, or monthly or weekly meetings, that they talk about it all the time. So it's not something that we just take it off the internet or a book and say, yeah, we want integrity in our like core value. Like integrity is not in our core value; it's a given. Like you have to be in like have the integrity to join the company, right? So when we create a core value, is that we actually because we run a remote company, so it's even harder and when we don't have people face to face and talk about it all the time. So we actually flew in and then we went to LA and then we actually spent a whole day and just talk nothing but the core value. Like brainstorm, just talk about, based on your experience. Each person has very valuable corporate experience. And then just bring all the brains together and then brainstorm it and then just have them to really live and breathe it on a daily basis. So that definitely helps.
Yeah, I agree. We had, I think, like that same kind of thing, five or six values, and they all were very fitting to us. But when we've been employee owned for a long time, but we in 2015 we went from a you can invest your own money in the company, we're paid dividends, like very real investment, very real return on investment with our stock program to an ESOP, which is a more of a entitlement. So you get it as part of your compensation. And we realized that we were losing that what it means to be an owner when people didn't get the dividend that it wasn't meaningful, right? It was just an ESOP statement that they get when they leave the company. And so I had to really clarify that, and I was like, these values, while I think that they fit us, like it doesn't resonate. It doesn't really just resonate with like what are the most important things. And so we did something very similar, and we took it down to three: self self leadership, practice self leadership, team, be a great teammate, and then customer, right? Deliver on the Stone Age Assurance promise, which is our promise to our customers. And I will tell you what, that exercise, going through that and then really just narrowing it down to those things that were really meaningful to us instead of just a word, like it is a phrase of how, not what we do, but how we be, right? When we show up every day, it's just been a dramatic shift in like, we talk about our values every day. There is not a day that doesn't go by that I hear somebody talking about the own it mindset and be a great teammate, or I'm practicing self-leadership, or I just delivered on the Stone Age Assurance promise. And so I think that that's right. It's really important that it comes from the group, right? From all areas of the organization that really has to resonate.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And everyone need to, feel like they're a part of it. Because otherwise they just words, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep,
very important to
absolutely.
practice it. And then just, about how many times you also you talk about it too. So constantly talking about it and then also will help people to resonate.
Yeah, to reinforce it. I agree.
Yeah.
So I want to switch directions a little bit. Being a Chinese immigrant, so minority owned business in Ohio, can you talk about some of the challenges that you have faced as you started and tried to grow this company?
Yeah, many. So I think just like any entrepreneur, out in the world, and when you're an entrepreneur, especially a first time founder, and it's really really difficult at the beginning, right? And as at the beginning, especially, I went from being a recruiter into the entrepreneur entrepreneurial, and at first I just felt like very lonely, and I wasn't in any part of the organization or any coaches or any advisor, and I didn't even know what a board means. And then so there was a lot of just learning and pick up a book and literally just do Google. Like Google is my best friend. So I know it sounds very cliche, but I'm a believer of abundance. So no matter what it is, right? And then I embrace the competition. I assume people have good intention, right? So that's the reason why I like to make friends, but at the same time over time, and then you can tell this person is a trustworthy or this person is not. So so I practice that, and then my theory is that in order to build a team, you have to go out in the network and gather resources. So that's what I did. Is that I literally just at the beginning I didn't know like where to look for the right people, and I just got on Upwork, and then I start looking for some contractors, and then turn into like full time. And then I got on LinkedIn and I connected with people, and I got on the phone with them, and some founders are very, very nice. And then they are just, for nothing in return. And they just want to get on the phone and help you out. And then I was like, wow, amazing. Like I wish I could do that, when I get to that point. Right. And then just gathering a lot of resources and start network my way through. And we're in the middle of fundraising right now. So, at first, and I didn't even know what venture capital means. And then I'm just navigating my way through in the venture capital world and, angel groups, etc. And now we can say, we're a VC backed company. And then all because of, you don't give up, because I had 60, 70, VC said no to me, or very politely said, it's not a no, it's just not yet. Or, we're cheering for you on the sideline, etc., etc. So I was at a point I was, almost wanted to give up. And then I was like, man, I just, maybe after 50, 40, 50 no's, and I was just like, oh, like it's really discouraging. And I haven't got one yes from angel group or VCs. And then is it because of me? Is it because of my company? Is it because of my product? Is it because of it just the self-doubt would come up. And then I remembered, and actually, I listened to a podcast, and then it was a founder for another company, and then he said I had 100 no's before I got my first yes, and I was like, oh, I'm just not there yet. So, and a fun fact about myself, I did door to door sales for 5 years before after I graduated college. So, because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and then the one of the biggest the skill set that you need is sales, right? So and I was not good at it. So because English is my second language. So I wanted to practice English, and then hence I knock on doors, and I was like, hey, if anything, I'm practicing my English. But I was on 100% commission. That was a fun time of 5 years. And then, but I learned, to have tough skin. So, and then one day my husband was like, when I was like really just pulling my hair out, and my husband's like, hey, you knock on doors, you knock on 100 doors in a day. You only knock on like 100 VC doors in the last, 2, 3 months. So, you just kind of have to knock on more doors. I was like, oh, thank you. That's if you put that into perspective. And I was like, you know what? I just didn't knock on enough doors. And then this funny story is that just after the 60, 70 no's, and then I pitched maybe 5 more, and 4 of them say yes, which is
That's
crazy to me.
I know. Wow.
Is law of averages. So a lot of people just stopped at right before the finish line. I almost did. And I would just that the last little bit, that last 1% is separates people from, you know, good to great. So and I just remember that and I think just from the book or from the podcast and just like keep going because you're right at the finish line. You just keep going, doing 1% every day, and then you get there.
I love that. Perseverance matters so much. Perseverance and initiative, right? And I always tell people, go for it, go for it, go for it. If you believe in yourself and you dream it, you might get those no's or turned down. But if you stop at that first no or 70th no, and you know that this is what you're supposed to do, then you're selling yourself short. So I think that brilliant. It's a beautiful story of resiliency. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're just getting started. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the journey. And the more people I meet and then the more resources I have, they're just giving us the confidence that, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's talk a little bit about the leap from technical recruiting into, building a company. So what did recruiting really teach you? I mean, obviously about building a team, but getting ready for the challenges that leadership was going to throw at you as you are being a scrappy startup.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot about kind of a take a holistic view instead of thinking just which role that because as a recruiter, I'm just, thinking about okay, which role that I'm trying to fill, right? And then but as a employer, and I kind of have to switch the mindset of okay, why am I recruiting for this role? And also, I need to take a look at the organization and see what are the most important roles that we have in order to grow that team. Is growing the top line sales is your primary goal, or growing the margin, or growing the bottom line, and the key is we want to have attention in the most important areas, right? So just having that mindset, just doing a kind of a organizational design, and having good leadership is important. So I think just kind of adopting that mindset of growing your leadership team first, and then you can have a good foundation, and then rinse and repeat and build their teams. At the beginning is always the hardest because I've helped startups to grow from 2 people to a couple hundred people. And then that initially is always hard because, as a startup and as you may know, smaller company, it's harder to recruit people. And once you get to, the Google or Nestle, it's just much easier. So I think it's just finding the people who have the vision and then is, willing to ride along with you is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's been, the biggest surprise from a leadership perspective running a company, or maybe the biggest mistake you've made? Like, what's the aha or lesson learned that you weren't expecting?
I think just in terms of, and then we're still young, and I mean, we really started the company in July of last year, so it's been only 14 months, but I feel like we've already been learning so much. I think it's not necessarily a mistake, but we're learning along the way of how to be more efficient, right? So at first, I just felt like I was an octopus and I'm just dipping my toes in everything, sales and finance and operations and but later on and I realized that having mental clarity and delegate and trust people is so important so that you can focus on the most important thing. So to me is the three most important elements in the organization is marketing, finance, and operations. We have to have all three cylinders going at the same time at the same speed. If one department is falling short, do not have a good leadership, and the other two just kind of like, what do we do? Or the company is not gonna be growing as fast, right? Because as a venture, and then we are seeing as the hockey stick, right? So in order to achieve that hockey stick, we really, really need to set really good foundation. So really getting yourself kind of having them into clarity, and then getting the great people in those seats, and then we can have put processes in place. Because to me, the difference between a mom and pop shop and a franchise like Starbucks is that franchise have got the system down. They've got processes for everything, right? So that they can rinse and repeat and on a scale. So if you want to scale the company, what I realized is that, we have to have those processes in place and have the good people who have those experience in building really solid frameworks. And then we can rinse and repeat and then really growing in any market. So obviously we still have a lot of growth to do, but that's how it got us from where we were, just a year from now to now, our current run rate is $8 million. So I think, for a company wants to do big things, and then we have to have these systems and processes in place.
And I know that you work with a coach, right? We both work with CEO Coaching International. So tell me a little bit about how that came to be and how your coach is helping you with some of these, fundamental business learnings that you are, knee deep in right now.
Yeah, for sure. So my coach is Megan Watkins. So she is a goat. So greatest of all time. Using acronyms. So, and because at first, being a new mom and also a new entrepreneur, it was very challenging, right? Nerve-wracking, and then sometimes I have a lot of self-doubt. So, I knew that I needed a role model to some a North Star that I can model after. So, obviously, I was searching online and I found a platform is called Mentor Pass, and then I actually met Megan through that platform first, and then she introduced me to CEO International, which is much more of comprehensive, and then also very resource, like a lot more resources in the space. So she introduced me to a lot of resources that we have nowadays, and then I'm just really grateful. For example, the hiring agency that we use, and then she connected me with investors, and she connected me with a lot of retail partners, and then salespeople. So she herself, and then just very valuable to the company. And then she also believe in our vision, which I really appreciate. And then also she's someone that I can just call in the middle of the night, and when I have a mental meltdown, when my 1-year-old is crying, and my business is not like doing so well, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you have those moments no matter how big the company is. So to have a North Star who has been there before, and is also a female, is huge, because she can understand what I'm going through. And she's like, Alicia, I just remember she said, I know it sounds cliche, but it's like giving birth, and having a company is like giving birth. So you don't know what to expect until you actually had your kid. And then you're like, oh, okay, I did that. And then, so it's the same. She's like, might sound cliche, but trust me, believe me, I've been through that. I've done it before. You will be fine. And then just trust your instinct, and then you'll get there. You'll get through the hump, and then you get there. So sometimes you just need that encouragement to keep going, essentially. So yeah, so I'm very grateful to have Megan in my life.
I work with Chris Larkins, and he's amazing. Same thing for me. I'm in, of course, a much different stage of my business than you. Not an entrepreneur, hired gun, even though I run an employee-owned company. But my goal is to get us to $1 billion valuation, and do that with no outside capital. We'll see.
Wow.
That's my goal. And so I really appreciate, like, one, his experience, but two, like, he holds me accountable to keep creating that vision and that plan. Right. It's so easy to just like get mired down in the day-to-day stuff. And not that there's not important things and details that have to be taken care of, but in the day-to-day, but I have to be thinking about that bigger vision. And so that's one of the areas that he's really helped me stay focused is, all right, how are we going to double? And then how are you going to double again? And let's put these activities in place. And let's think about your acquisition strategy and all of those things. And so it's been super helpful for me to have him. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your experience with coaching. I'm a huge believer in it. It's awesome that you're working with them too. So I have a couple more questions that I'd like to ask you before
Of
we
course.
wrap things up. So the name of this podcast is Reflect Forward, and I'd like to know, what does Reflect Forward mean to you?
Yeah. As I was mentioning about my fun fact, which is I did door to door for 5 years, and from that experience, I had a lot of resentment because when I was doing the door to door, a lot of people say, "Oh, get a real job," and then some people say, "Oh, you have to live off 100% commission, probably because you can't get a job, or why don't you just join the corporate job and then just make a salary?" And it's just a lot of negative feedback, and even from my family. So at first, and that I was living in kind of the shadow of that experience. And then I was like, maybe I'm just a salesperson. Maybe I can't be an entrepreneur. Many, many years, I had nightmares of knocking on doors. But, I think fast forward to, obviously I'm not nowhere near close to where I want to be. But I think compared to just a couple years ago, I am at a much better position is because I have hope. And I, really sat down and asked myself, does it service me? The resentment, does it service me? And does it help me to get to a become a better person or get to the better position? If it doesn't, then I need to learn how to let it go and be grateful that I have that experience. Because of those experiences I learned of work ethic, I learned to have student mentality. I learned to have positive attitude because you gotta need those after a couple of doors slam at you. So, and because of that, I didn't stop in my fundraising process, in my entrepreneurship journey. So I kept going and kept going. I said, hey, if that's my worst time, like, I had to knock on doors when it was like storm out, and then when it was like snowing, and have to knock on doors at 9 p.m. because I have to hit that sales quota. And I was like, if I can go through that, I can go through anything. So I turned the resentment into something that I'm grateful for. So every single day, I'm grateful that I get to work with really brilliant people and get to build a company. And then I get to work from home. I don't have to knock on doors anymore. I know it sounds very cliche, but it is the past that don't get define you. It help build you into someone who you are. And I'm very grateful to have those experience in my life because I think those are building blocks, right?
That's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I totally agree with you. It is all those hard aspects of life, those crappy jobs that you have that teach you so many things. And when you can approach it with gratitude, like, I mean, I made a ton of bad decisions that helped me get to point where I am today. And I'm so thankful for it, right? I could feel shame or guilt or resentment and all of those, but instead, if you just fill yourself with gratitude, like, I did that. I overcame that, and helps with, the self-confidence and the resilience that you found to go on. So I really, really appreciate that story. That was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to kind of reflect something, just as a for anyone who's a minority or the audience who maybe have the same background, immigrant. So I just like a lot of immigrants, and then came to America in 2009. So growing up actually in a one bedroom apartment. So I was a PhD, poor, hungry, and desperate. So so I was saying I joke about it now, but it was really a difficult time, right? And then a lot of times I was like, oh, why was I not born in a rich family? Why was I not born with hundreds of millions of dollars handed to me? And then sometimes I was like, it's not fair. And then when I was younger, and I truly thought about that. But now I'm just like, I thank my parents like to give me that experience. And then I'm in a very vulnerable situation where as a parent, now I realize and how important it is to create that environment for your next generation. I just want to give my kids everything that I didn't have, right? So to provide that environment, because I grew up in a one bedroom apartment, and I learned that that's the environment I don't want to go back to. Hence, I work hard every single day in trying to provide that better environment for my family. So, yeah, that's another, I guess, perspective, every day. And then just thinking about my past, and, that kind of would motivated me too, is that to get to somewhere where I want to be, even though it's hard, along the way. But, as long as you focus on the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always hope.
Yep. I love that. It's a beautiful story. Thank you. All right. Final question. If you had one piece of advice to give a leader to be the very best at what they do, what would it be?
Always be humble. I realize that in this journey, there's a lot of things that I don't know. And then in the meantime, I'm learning from everybody that I come across and networking. And if you feel stuck, always remember the resource is always believe and there's abundant of resources. So even if you are stuck, no matter what you're stuck with, there's always resources. So as long as you keep trying, there's no failure.
Well, Alicia, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you. I am so rooting for you. I'm going to buy a Nutter
Thank you.
'cause I love it and I want to support you. And I just cannot wait to see all the amazing things that you go out and do. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we're obviously expanding. There's a lot of fun, exciting news is coming out, and stay tuned. And you can find us on Instagram and also on YouTube and a couple other social media. And we're very excited to launch a new product, which is another blends. Is helping customers with, if you want to make your plant-based milk a little bit more fun, we're actually launching the Nutter blends. So different flavors and adaptogens, vitamins, and minerals. So it's a very interesting sector that we're tapping into, health and wellness. So stay tuned.
That's wonderful. Well, I will include all of those in the show notes. And just so everybody knows, it's spelled Nutr.
Okay.
So if you don't go to the show notes and you want to go look them up, the website is the Nutr, the nutter.com. I was just on it going like, ooh, I can't wait to buy one of these. So, but I will include all that in the show notes. So, well, best of luck to you, Alicia. So glad you're on the show. Can't wait to have you back in a couple of years when you tell me that far surpassed your $10 million goal.
Oh, it's gonna be hopefully Q1 of next year. So
That's awesome. I love it.
yeah, hopefully next time that I get to meet you in person, YPO or CEO
Yeah.
International. That's always my goal, is like to get to play with the big whales.
Well, I appreciate that. I do too. So, well, thank you so much, and I look forward to meeting you in person. And hang tight, everybody, and I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Alicia. Go buy one of her Nutters. I am going to do it as well. I love almond milk, almond coconut milk, and I cannot wait to try making it myself. If you like this podcast, please be sure to like it, write a review, rate it, subscribe to it, share it with a friend. It helps with the algorithms. I appreciate it so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.